Ready, go!
Layla is one of the original hero. She's been here since the beginning, and most people consider her to be a troll or a meme pick nowadays. They don't take her seriously. Now why is that? It's not because she doesn't have damage, because if you play against her, you know that she have damage, serious damage at that. And to top it all off, she have a good range for marksman. She have one of the longest basic attack range in the entire game, and unlike Clint or Leslie, she doesn't need to trigger it because it is built into her ultimate passive. Now of course you can also increase her basic attack range by hitting an enemy with your first ability. Now, with all the good thing I have said, she also comes with a lot of problems. So let's talk about her passive and ability to see what those problems are. Begin with her passive, Malefic Gun. The farther away the enemy are, the more damage you will deal as Layla. Now, this passive is what I call a tutorial passive. It teaches new player or player in general to play marksman by encouraging you to hit from the farthest distance and kiting the enemy. Okay, let us start with the good thing first. And the first good thing is that it synergizes pretty well with all of her abilities. And the second good thing, as I mentioned before, it teaches player how to kite and reward them by hitting the enemy from farther away. Move on to the bad things. And the biggest problem with this passive is that it is completely useless against heroes that can get close to her, aka most assassin. So essentially the most dangerous or the most threatened role in the entire game, your passive is useless against them. It is nullified. And this is a huge problem because if we look back at the two heroes I mentioned before, Clint and Leslie, if they hit their enemy with the passive, regardless of the range or the distance of the enemy, it's going to hurt. But for Layla, if the enemy is next to her, it's not going to be as painful as it is if they are far away. So that's not great. Now, before we move on to her first ability, I just want to note that her passive affects the damage from her ability as well, not just her basic attack. Her first ability, Malefic Bomb, is Layla shooting in a straight line, dealing damage to the enemy that it got hit. If Layla hit an enemy, her basic attack range will increase for 3 seconds and she will gain a boost of movement speed over a period of time. You can see why this ability is good with her passive. Her passive wants her to hit the enemy from as far away as possible, and her first ability allows her to increase the range of her basic attack. So there is the synergy that I was talking about. This is what I would call a utility skill. The skill itself does not deal much damage, but it is a tool that helps Layla deal more damage. So I would not change much about it. I think it's already good, so I keep it as the way it is. Now let's talk about her second ability, Void Projectile. Layla fires an orb to a target hero. The orb will explode on impact, dealing damage and mark the enemy. If Layla hit the marked enemy again, they will be stunned and receive extra damage. It is important to note that the range of this ability is tied with her basic attack range. So yes, if you increase her basic attack range with her ultimate passive or her first ability, you will increase the range of the second ability as well. This ability is really interesting because just like her first ability, this is a utility skill. It does not mean to deal damage, but it is a tool to help Layla. And the reason I said that this skill is interesting is because the skill works how you want it to work. But the problem is it doesn't work well enough to the point where you consider it to be a good skill. And this is what I mean by saying that. The second ability is only lasts for 0.25 seconds. The only good thing I can say about this ability is that it can interrupt the other enemy channeling skill. And that's it. It's not long enough for you to burst the enemy down, and it's not long enough for you to run away from the enemy. So it's not a very good self-heal. Now for her ultimate, Destruction Rush. Layla fires a blast of energy in a straight line, dealing damage to the enemy hit. And it also has a passive. The passive is that every time she level up this ability, her attack range would be increased. This ability overall is pretty solid, consider that it is a gap closer that can help you kill off the enemy that trying to escape. And the passive is the best part, that increase range is really good for Layla, consider her passive, and it's also increased the range of her second ability, which is also pretty good. Okay, now that we have talked all about her ability and passive, let's discuss the problem that Layla has. Let's begin with the most obvious, and that is she does not have mobility skill. Compared to other marksmen in the roster, she is one of the 3 heroes that does not have mobility, and those 3 are Hanabi, Popo and Koopa, and Layla herself. And if you look at those other 2, they have stun, they have root, ability that help them heal themselves or protect them from the enemy. Let's take a look at Popo and Koopa. He have a lot of crowd control. His trap help root the enemy. When he activate his ultimate, his first ability, stun, his second ability can knock up. So as you can see, he have 3 crowd control that can protect and attack the enemy. So it's really good. Now let's take a look at Hanabi. Hanabi is not as good as Popo and Koopa, but she's still pretty decent. Her first skill allow her to protect herself from crowd control as long as she has shield, and her ultimate is a root that can help lock the enemy in place for her to run away or for her to deal damage to them. So she pretty decent overall. And now if we look back at the roster, everybody have some mobility. Clint have his second ability, Leslie have a second ability, Carrie have a second ability, and Brody also have a second ability that is a stun and also a dash, and Bruno have his second ability that is also a dash, and so on and so forth. Now you might wonder why I don't add Maya to the list of heroes who does not have mobility, and the reason is simple. I think that her ultimate is served as a mobility for her. It's good enough for her because you can use it and then burst the enemy down quickly. So I think it's good enough, and I don't include her in the list of hero that doesn't have mobility. And now if we look back at Layla, she have nothing in her name, nothing to protect herself but her 0.25 second of stun. That's the only protection she have. Most Layla is not going to have a great time playing against assassin or any hero who can get to the back line. So yeah, it's not very good for her. And that's the core problem, is that she does not have a dash, not necessary to escape the enemy but also to chase the enemy as well, because remember, everybody now have dash or mobility of some sort, and as the number of hero increase, the number of dash in the game is only going to increase as well. So it's really bad for her to not have any. And to solve those problems, here are some suggestions that I have for Layla. Okay, this is how I would change her passive. I would take the ultimate passive and make it her actual passive. And the range of the attack would increase by level and not by upgrading her ultimate. This is much better because now she can actually feel the impact every time she leveled up, and that would be great for her. And for her first ability, I would not change it because I think it's pretty good already, so I would keep it the way it is. For her second ability, what I have in mind is this. The easy way to do with this is to give her the same treatment as other marksmen, and that is to give her a dash on her second ability. But if you want to keep her the same, keep her immobilized, you can make it a knockback instead of a stun. Her second ability now would knock back instead of a stun. I think that would be much better because A, it creates some space between you and the enemy so you can use her passive more effectively, and B, it's great if you want to run away as well. And for her ultimate, I don't really have anything to add to it except for damage, because now that I remove the ultimate passive, it won't be as good. So the thing is, I would add damage to it to balance. Before I end, I just want to say that I don't think they're going to change her or revamp her in any significant way, because she is one of the OG hero. She is one of the stable. She is the tutorial hero for beginner. and I don't think they will ever touch her. So yeah, that's it.